welcome back to my Porsche 991.2 GT3 RS. I'm back at the Nurburgring, which is running just behind there, behind the road there. The long the long straightaway Dottiger Hoya is just coming over there and going into Tiergarten, which means zoo. Don't ask me why, probably a lot of animals in those woods. And then going into T13, the old historic pit lane entry and exit. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about 1 year of ownership with the new GT3 RS and ownership with almost only driving on the track. I don't drive it on the road. I used to with other cars, but it's a little bit of a poison gift. The moment you start really driving on the track, I mean, you get nowhere near the limits on the public roads. And even if you do, well, you're an idiot. Just take it to the track and don't risk the life of other people. Just go to the track and, well, risk your own life. No, to be serious, the GT3 RS, it's basically a race car, and the only purpose that you can really feel everything of the car is on a racetrack. And what better one than Nurburgring Nordschleife, where the car is always, I mean, all the GT3 RS, all the Porsches, they're all developed here and tested. And it did an amazing time of 6 minutes 56, 2 seconds faster than the 918 Spider, which is, I mean, it's incredible. That said, okay, most of it is down to the new tires. I don't know when the record was with the 918. I think it's about 2012 or even maybe a little bit earlier, I'm not sure. But I mean, to say 7 years or 6 years at least of new tire technology. They use the Cup 2 Rs, which I go over time and time and again. They're the best tires you could have. So what I'm saying is a lot of the time that made the GT3 RS do 6 minutes 56 is mostly also because of the tires, the chassis setup, and the extra downforce. What I'm going to talk to you about today is, like I said, Porsche always forms follow function, they always mention, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about the functions of the GT3 RS and why it's such a competent car on the racetrack. Let's start off with the NACA ducts. Well, I don't know if you know, but NACA was a predecessor of NASA. Basically stands for, I believe I'm not mistaken, National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. And they invented the NACA ducts. And why is this so special? Is because the NACA ducts, you know, you see that it starts very narrow and it goes wider. This is all to do with getting a lot of airflow into a hole or into a cavity without causing extra drag and turbulence around the hole. Now, these two holes, the NACA ducts, they're actually made because a lot of people think it's like for extra downforce or whatever, but it's mostly for brake cooling. So the wind, I mean, goes in here. I will show you. Let me open this up. A little bit difficult with holding the gimbal. So when I open this, then you will see a lot of junk in my trunk, but oh, junk in my trunk. Okay. So the hole here, the cavity, so it goes straight in here. Maybe you can even see, I mean, through it. The cavity comes out here, the wind, and then the wind, it actually goes, if I can tilt this way, the wind actually goes in here and all the way down there. I don't know if you can see this, but let me try anyway. So all the way down there, there's like a tube that goes down, and this goes straight into an exit hole just behind the calipers, and it blows extra wind in the brake calipers and the rotor. And so this mostly for brake cooling. Now, why is this also a benefit to downforce is because normally in the old GT3 RSs there was a plastic well, how do you say it, tube also, but in the front, you know, so it really took the air just next to the tire. It took the air from there and then straight into the tires. But of course, if you place something like a hole like this, like a tube, you know, from the outside of the car or underneath the car, it really messes up the downforce of the aeronautics downforce of the underbody of the car. So they remove this tube and they put it on the top. And now you have a slicker surface on the bottom of the car, which creates a low pressure zone even more, and then creates downforce, pressing the car down. Another thing that they did with the new GT3 RS is the adding of, well, Andreas Ponninger calls it a Jagger lip, which I'm not sure it resembles a little bit, but they also did it. They started out doing this with the RSR, the race car. And the RSR, the lip also, it has like a dent in it. So it's like in the RSR, the race car, it has a complete front spoiler lip. And the front spoiler lip, it goes like this and then goes up and down. Here's a picture of it. And what this does is it accelerates the air going underneath there, because of course air will go like water to the least resistance. And this way, it crosses faster air moving down there, because all the rest is a little bit more blocked. And then it creates even a more low pressure zone, which pushes the front of the car down. But this works, of course, together with the new rear diffuser. Now, they started using this diffuser for the 911R, because the 911R, it was really a fast car, of course, but it didn't have a wing. So what they did is they started with a diffuser below here, and this diffuser they also now placed on the new GT3 RS, as you can see. And what this does is also it accelerates the air so really rapidly to the back of the car, really flowing out like this. And this also again creates a low pressure zone. This also with a flatter underbody, and this creates, I mean, I don't know exact how many kilos only by this, but it will be a lot. What they also did is they made this, the louvers, they made them bigger. Normally there's a plastic mesh inside, as I mentioned on my previous video. You cannot take it out on the public roads. Well, I mean, you can, but it's not road legal, because the law requires that you cannot see your own tires because of safety reasons, if rocks would fly out or something. But they made this bigger, and also these plastic bits are also larger and sticking out more. With the old GT3 RS, it was more flat, and this also makes that the air gets less turbulent around, so it creates more of a nice flowing wave, which will cause the Venturi effect to stick the air closer to the car and really go straight in outwards, and also go into the inlets of the engine there. Also here you see, but that's mostly with all GT cars, is also but even BMW have this, also to create more airflow going straight into the car here and into the engine air inlet. Now, what else did they do? So they extended these louvers, but also it gets more air out of the wheel wells. That's what I wanted to say. So because the wheel really goes really fast around, and it's like almost like a fan, you know, like it creates a lot of turbulent air. And with these ones, of course, you see it on race cars, on the 911R, I mean the race car R, the louvers are really massive, you know, they're really large, and this is all getting all this turbulent air out of the wheel well, pushing the car down. Because if you don't have this, all the air that comes underneath the car just pushes against this wheel well, and it really lifts the car up, or wants to lift the car up. So the more, I mean, front spoiler lips you have, the louvers, this is all about getting air out of the wheel wells and pushing the car flat to the ground, which of course presses on those gigantic tires and creating more grip. They also did, this is also new with this GT3RS, they also extended, I'm lost for the word here, but these plastic plates, you know, the bottom plates, they extended this as well, just like almost the race car, which also creates a flat surface extension, you know, a flat surface next to the car, which again creates more downforce. For the rest, I believe these holes are new. You have some protective mesh. This is standard from the GT cars. This is all about saving the radiators, because as many will know, Mercedes, I don't know why, but Mercedes with their track cars of the AMG GTR and everything, they actually don't use this, and a lot of people are complaining about this because when you drive on track, what it's meant for and what they publicize it for, market it for, is if you drive it on track and you get some rock chips in there, I mean, it completely destroys your radiator. With the public road, this could happen, but not as often with track driving, of course, because there's always very fast cars in front of you with sticky tires as well, and the sticky tires, they throw rocks at you like bullets, you know. So they will penetrate a radiator, and I don't want to tell you what a radiator costs. And that's why Porsche always, like a true motorsport company, they place protective grills in front of these openings. But this is new, that's what I wanted to say. This was first started on the GT3, the 991, I think even .2 GT3. And these are extra inlets to get air out. But there's no protective grill because it goes a little bit crooked like this. So the air deflects in more this way. And all this air, also there's a hole in between, and the air just flies out through here, which again creates the hot air coming out, which creates again a nice sticking effect of the air on the front bonnet, which really flies over all the way over the car. Even these two grooves that you see on the carbon fiber hoods, you know, they're all about making the airflow really go in the middle and really fly all the way, following on the magnesium roof, even here, flying all the way up to the enormous wing. Now, what does all this do? Well, in my case, I put all of the aero on maximum, so the wing, you know, the carbon fiber wing, I also put on a maximum position. You can see this here. Normally, you can see that here, you know, there's extra holes, and I have put it on the maximum position, which creates even more downforce at the rear. Then, like I said before, I took out the plastic mesh on the louvers, which also gets more air out. And all of this together, you know, plus I also removed another thing that I can mention is normally here, I don't know if you can see it, but here in the back, normally here, you see now there's a hole. So this stops here. And this one normally is a plastic, I can show you even better, like this maybe. Normally there's a plastic, a little plastic part that really, let me get this a little bit brighter, that sticks out here, you know, you even see the screw holders here. So normally this is covered completely with a small plastic part as my finger, and this creates like an air dam that's sitting here, and that just is for creating less less downforce. I mean, less air drag. And if you remove these plastic covers, even the air really accelerates faster underneath the car, creating an equal balance between the higher position of the wing and the front. So, because if you don't do this, the front creates, the back creates more downforce than the front, and then you have an imbalance of the car. Now I removed this as well, and then the maximum downforce, which is, I mean, astonishing on a car like this, it almost reaches around in between 400 to 450 kilograms of downforce. Now that's substantially more than the last one. I think the last one, it topped off at 300 to 350 at maximum speed, I must mention. So this one goes up to normally 312. If you go on maximum positions on everything, you will not reach 312. I did about maximum 305, but I'm not sure if it could go even faster under better conditions, you know, the wind direction, air temperature and everything. But I mean, on top speed, it creates around 450 kilograms downforce, really pushing onto car. I mean, that's like half a ton. Of course, like the McLaren Senna creates 800 more or less. But again, the wing and all of the carbon inlets and everything, that's way bigger. And also the car is way more expensive, 4 times more expensive. And I mean, so all to say, like, most of the time, that's why I love about Porsche is they are so close to their motorsport program with their road cars. But also, if you think about it, a Porsche is really the best bang for your buck because they're actually the cheapest cars that you can buy to really, I mean, one of the cheapest but also fastest car you can buy to go driving on the track. Because if you think about it, this is the top spec GT product, well, except the GT3 RS. But this is the one of the top spec GT models of the range, and this is, let's say, you know, about 211, 210,000 euros. But if you think about it, then you have the top of the range product from Porsche. But if you want to do this with Ferrari with a 488 Pista, I mean, you're losing 300 to 350, even more, maybe 400,000 euros. And then if you go to McLaren, you know, 675 LT or even a 600 LT, which the 600 LT is not even as capable of this. It is very fast, no argument about this. It has 600 horsepower, probably even a little bit more. But it does have the downforce, and just around corners it will not go as fast as a GT3 RS. But even that, the 600 LT even costs more than this. You know, it's around 230, 240, 250 maybe, even if you go crazy with the carbon fiber. Just to mention that Porsche is actually a lot of value for your money. But then again, I mean, it's very expensive, of course. But then again, if you think about it, a lot of research go into it. A lot of design, I mean, research, everything. Not to mention all the parts and I mean, titanium exhaust and everything. Just think about this for a second. Imagine if you would take a normal car or even a Carrera and try to get the same effect as what the GT3 RS has done. You know, you add a carbon fiber wing, you add a ducktail, you add a titanium exhaust and underbody and everything, the louvers. Even imagine if you know, you get a metal cutter or carbon fiber cutter, you cut in between the wide body, and I mean, imagine probably you would end up even more. It's costing more than this, you know. So I mean, that's basically about the downforce. Now let me talk about a little bit more about owning the car for a year. When I had the car new, of course, I always run in my engines. I mentioned this in one of the first videos. Maybe you should also watch this again, my very first track day with the car. But the car, in the manual, it says that you have to run it in for only 1,500 kilometers. Now, why is this strange or funny? Well, all the other Porsches that I had, the Porsche Boxer GTS, the Cayman GT4, and other Porsches I know, they always needed a run-in period of 3,000 kilometers. Now, this is, and even the GT2 RS also has 3,000 kilometers, but this is the first one that I know, together with maybe the GT3 also, that has only a 1,500 kilometer running period. Now, this can only mean that the engine is tested to such extremes and really using their motorsport program to really guarantee that the engine is already really well bed in after 1,500 kilometer. And imagine, I mean, you can rev it up to 9,000 RPM like a race engine, you know. So when I got the car brand new, I drove it on a road trip, because I was always braking in the car just on normal public roads. But then I thought to myself, just a waste of kilometers and actually money, because every kilometer you do, you just lose money on this. So I thought to myself, hey, why not make it a road trip and use those 3,500 kilometers for something interesting? And so I took it up back to its home, where it's actually made. I drove all the way from the dealer to Porsche Stuttgart to the factory, and went to the museum and had a nice time. And by the time I was driving back, actually, I stopped by the Nordschleife. Because then, actually, when I just arrived here, it was just broken after 1,500 kilometers, and that means that I could do my first couple of laps. Now I did this, and I must say, even almost on the first lap, I almost crashed the car, because I wasn't used to the rear engine, you know, the weight bias of the rear engine of the Carrera. Because I was always driving with the Boxer GTS and then the Cayman GT4, which had a middle, the engine sitting in the middle, which is so much better for weight balance and everything. So for me, it was a big change and learning curve to get used to the having the engine on the rear. So that's it. Have a look at the video. I almost crashed it. Luckily, I saved it. But that was the first time I really felt a difference with having the engine at the rear. Not so good for going fast into corners, but really good at exiting, making a fast exit out of the corner. And why is that? Because the engine is sitting on the back. It has more weight pushing on those rear tires, which really, you know, if you play as a kid or with your kid, you play with your toy cars and you push at the back, you know, you have a lot of grip, you know, going in corners. And this is the same thing with a Carrera, because there's more weight at the back. It really hunkers the rear tires down, creating more traction and more grip on the rear tires, really catapulting you out of the corners. But then again, if you go really fast into corners on a way that you would do on a mid-engine car, the car just wants to spin out because it has a pendulum effect, and the weight, of course, is more on the back, so it wants to rotate this way. But that said, after, you know, a while, I got used to it, and I understood that I couldn't brake as late or trail brake as late as I did with a GT4, and also not aggressive. So it's more of a waiting game. So you really have to go really gently into the corner, just having a little bit more patience, and then really accelerating hard and fast out of a corner, like full throttle. And this is what this car really is amazing for, and what it does. Then, you know, a couple of months, you know, I really was getting used to the car, going faster and faster times. But actually, after that first day, I was telling myself, oh man, what have you done? You know, the GT4, it felt so much better, so much more how do you say, it gave so much more confidence. You can drive it really aggressively. It communicates a lot more. And I was thinking like, damn, this GT3 RS was not as I expected. But then, you know, this went a little bit more away, the more I got to know the car. But still, I always felt I didn't have all the confidence I could get with the car. And now I found out why. It's because of the tires. This car gets delivered with the Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2 M2 tires, so the newest generation. And now what this does is like, what it felt to me is that I always was sliding around, especially at the rear, and I couldn't get the grip I was used to with the GT4. And I mean, two things play a part in this. Is that one, the car is a lot heavier. As you can see with another video I did recently with Mantai Racing, who set up my car, the total weight of the car with me as a driver, you know, my weight, and a full tank of gas, which is, I have the 90-liter option, full tank of gas, so 90 liters, about 90 kilos, my weight around 70. So I mean, that's a lot of extra weight, and then comes down to 1,520, which sounds a lot, but then if you deduct, I mean, if you take away my weight and the full tank of gas, I mean, it's okay for this car. But compare it to a GT4, and a GT4 is substantially lighter. So, you know, you have a lot more weight on the car that you want to fling around fast in corners. Then the tires, they are a lot larger. They're 325 on the rear and 265 on the front. But I didn't get, I mean, all the grip the car deserved, I feel, with the N2s. And that all changed the moment I got the new Cup 2R tires. These Cup 2Rs, as I mentioned before, they are really a hot lap qualifying, almost race tire. I don't know how Michelin got them road legal, but they did. And this tire, you know, it actually looks exactly the same as the normal, the N2s, but the compound is very, very different. You know, they used a lot of different compound around the tire, which makes it much more grippier. I estimate around 8 seconds easy, you know, with this tire of lap improvement. But most of it is, it's also about the confidence and the grip it gives. Now the car actually feels to me almost the same as the GT4 in stability. I can also now start to really go aggressive with the car and really flinging it into corners, and it always grips. So now I'm really, really happy, of course, together with the Mantai setup, which I will talk about later. But with these tires, this is the biggest change to me. if you're driving with a GT3 RS or even a GT3 or any car on the track, and you can get these Cup 2Rs, the next time you change your tires from the stock, just get these tires. You will not be, I mean, you will be very, very, very pleased with them. They're a little bit more expensive, but again, not that much, around, you know, 800, 700, 800 euros. And to me, they don't last that bad, you know. Now I've done 50 laps with these tires. So I think they're about, I mean, I think I did 60 laps with the N2s, you know, with the old ones, and I believe I can do as many on these ones. So actually, durability, they're not that bad. But the best performance is the first, you know, 10, 20 laps. Then you really, really have all the grip and can go for a really fast lap. That's said about the tires. What else? Well, the engine, you know, I mean, to me, it sounds like a race car engine. 9,000 RPM, sorry, 520 horsepower. And if you can feel this with the old version, I'm not sure. Has a little bit more torque. But that's not what this car is about, you know. It's more about all those small changes I just mentioned, you know, the aerodynamics, and most of it, the suspension. Now, the suspension, what they changed on this is they really used more of the suspension of actually the race car, the Cup car. So they used really uniball bearings, you know, like not rubber, but really like metal on the bearing rods of the suspension, which gives you a lot more stability and driver input. And this is really taken from the Cup car. This is the first time they've done this. I'm not sure about the GT2 RS if it also had it. I believe so. But the suspension setup, it has almost double the Newton meters of tension on these suspension setup, and this is substantially more than the old 991.1 GT3 RS. And you actually, I'm not sure if you feel it, but what surprisingly, they made the suspension also a little bit softer in its setup, and this you do feel. The car is really soft. If you just drive normally and you put the suspension button on normal, the car is actually quite soft. It's a lot softer, I must say, than my GT4. To make an example, with my GT4, if I went into town and there was an old European, you know, cobblestone road, I mean, my teeth were falling out. I could only drive like 10 kilometers an hour, because otherwise I felt I was raping the car up and destroying it, you know. With this one, actually, I can really go into the cobblestone road or a bumpy road, and there's actually no problem at all, which was surprising, because I believed, an RS will be a lot stiffer and a lot more bumpy, but this is not the case. This is actually quite soft in normal driving. But then if you push the suspension button into hard, then you get really a nice and stiff chassis. That's stiff even if you would have an inclination in the road and you have one tire, you know, going in an angle. This tire just comes completely off the ground, you know, it comes completely loose off the ground, which means you have a really, really stiff chassis. And that is one of the biggest things with this new facelifted model that you can feel on track, is just the chassis setup, you know. It's, I mean, I keep going on and on about it, but it's really a lot of the Cup car is in this car. Let's say, to me, it's about 70 to 80% the same feeling as the Cup car on a normal road car. Now, other things I could mention is, well, the downforce. Actually, where do you feel it on the track, like the Nordschleife? I mean, a lot of people ask, well, do you actually feel it? Yes, you really do. Actually, when I went on top speed at Schwedenkreuz with the GT4, I did around 256, 260 maximum. When I touched back down, you know, at Schwedenkreuz you have the jump. When I touched back down, the car was really like bumpy, you know, it was really almost flying around everywhere, which felt, I mean, very scary. With this one, you can go flat out, you go 270, even more, 280. I saw with Kevin Estrée, Porsche factory driver. You go over the crest, you touch down, the car just sticks. I mean, even the jump is not that big anymore, because that's really about the downforce. And at these speeds, you know, 270 kilometers an hour, believe me, the downforce, the wind is really pushing on the car. You know, as a kid that you always played with your sticking your hand out the window and playing with your hand as if it would be an airplane, and then when you went a little bit too steep of an angle, your arm just flew up to the window frame, and it really hurts, you know. Well, imagine this is only a small surface as your hand. Imagine with a big wing sticking out like this, you know, how much force it actually gives. And other corners, you know, fast corners, the exits of Schwedenkreuz, they're also, you know, you really feel like you have a lot more force pushing you down the ground and pushing those tires for maximum grip. I haven't said anything negative about this car. It's all been praise up until here. There's one major negative thing that I found over driving on the track a year with this car. As with the GT4, I also have the Club Sport package, which gives the roll cage and 6-point harness. Now, this brings me to the 6-point harness. With the GT4, it was an older type of Schrott seat belts, and those were the red ones, and they were quite wider. Now they changed it, I don't know why, but with these black ones, which are new, and the problem is with the black ones is that they are much more narrow than the red ones. And why is that a problem, you say? Well, actually, because it's more narrow, it sits really closer to your neck, I must say, so it gives a lot more pressure on the same area. I mean, on a smaller area, because it's, of course, it's thinner, it's narrower. And if the old ones, they were wider, the red ones, so the pressure was more divided over your shoulders. Then again, I'm coming to the issue here is because they are narrower, I felt, at least for me, that they cut off your blood stream a little bit around your neck and your shoulders, which again goes to your arms. And that's not really good, right? With driving fast laps, is that your arms are going numb because of your 6-point harness. So Schrott and Porsche, I hope they are watching this, probably not, but please go back to the older red ones, which are wider, because for narrow-bodied people like myself, they tend to cut off my blood around my neck, which make my arms go numb. And you could say, okay, then just loosen them up. Okay, sure, but then, I mean, you're not sitting nice and snug anymore, and because the whole point is that you don't move around. So with really fast laps, you think you are really strapped in, but when you're going really fast, you feel like, oof, I'm still moving. So you really need to strap in even more. Yeah, I'm quite perplexed that Porsche didn't even find this out, you know, during their test driving and research. But then again, when I look at the record lap, the fastest lap with this car that Kevin Estrée did, and I believe even Lars Kern's lap with the GT3 RS and GT3 RS MR from Anti-Racing, you must check these videos, and even there, they use the older red harnesses. So probably they knew it then, or they found out, but they weren't using these Schrott harnesses, the black ones. Which is a funny and strange thing. So yeah, I mean, that's the only negative thing I have about this car. All the rest is just amazing, you know. It revs fast, it revs high. Yeah, so yeah, all the rest is positive. No, maybe another negative thing, it really costs a lot. But then again, like I mentioned before, it's a lot of value for money. So guys, hope you enjoyed this new video about the GT3 RS driving 1 year around the Nordschleife. I'm still getting to learn this car every day and getting to grips with all the capability it has. And for sure, normally, I mean, it can do even faster than my 711 at this moment. I think without traffic, it would have been, you know, around 7.75, 7.7 maybe. But that's without a flying start, which also saves about 5 seconds because I exit from the pit. So, I mean, you can do, for sure, you can do sub 7 with this car around the Nordschleife with just a tourist drive or track day. So yeah, I mean, guys, hope you liked the video. Let me know in the comments if you have any other questions. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification button, because otherwise you will maybe miss my videos. And looking forward to seeing you around here at the Nordschleife. Bye, guys.